This video is sponsored by Surfshark, the most bizarre epidemics in history. Getting sick sucks, but getting really sick really sucks. A simple cold is like, yeah, whatever, but if you contract something that can invert your teeth and delete your eyes, it's not going to be a simple recovery. There's been quite a few weird diseases throughout history that have caused some rather bizarre symptoms. Take for instance, the English sweating sickness. Now, the English sweating sickness was a sickness in England that made you very sweaty. First appearing in 1485 at the tail end of the medieval era, the disease quickly became colloquially known as the sweat, TM. See, they even added the fancy little E on the end. Its origins remain a mystery, with some historians speculating that a group of smelly French mercenaries were the first ones to get down with the sickness. Oh. The disease may have migrated over to England near the conclusion of the brutal War of the Roses, which wiped nearly 100,000 asses from the map. The first known documentation of the disease comes from, ironically enough, French physician fella Thomas Le Forestier in 1485. He was living in London at the time and actually had contracted the disease himself, so being a responsible human, he had committed his experiences to paper, writing about his symptoms so that the knowledge may be studied by others within the medical community. The disease was also well documented in detail by English unphonetic last name having guy John Keys in 1552. Yeah, this illness lasted a while. Building off of the pre-modern miasma theory, it was widely believed that most diseases, not just the sweating sickness, spread through what they referred to as corrupt air. Well, if there's anything you know about medieval England, you know that it was stanky. Streets were filthy, water was gooped with poop, and the air could curl your nose hairs. Until the Great Stink of 1858, proper sanitation just really wasn't given much attention. While miasma theory was flat out wrong, some alternate propositions were a bit more off base. Some theories pointed to astrological origins for the disease. Some blamed Mars, others blamed Saturn. Keys himself blamed the stars. In one of his detailed reports, he said, quote, "To this may be joined the evil disposition by constellation, which hath a great power and dominion in all earthly things." But we of course know that astrology is a bunch of big brown baloney. Now, I firmly trust that you have the critical thinking skills to realize that the English sweating sickness's iconic symptom was impromptu perspiration. I mean, sweat just started flooding out of every pore, with physicians noting the startling and alarming suddenness of it all. Along with dripping out of your skin holes, the infected came down with immediate and strong existential dread, with crippling fear and anxiety. This was further accompanied by violent shivering, pounding headaches, and overall exhaustion. The profuse sweating caused extreme dehydration, intense thirst, and heart palpitations. One of the deadliest symptoms, as innocent as it may seem, was the overwhelming urge to sleep. This was the telltale sign that the disease had reached its endgame. Physicians were given extreme caution to not let their patients fall asleep, lest they wake up in a cleaner, cloudier afterlife.
Wake up!
Now, all of this, the sweating, chills, fears, sleepiness, death, all that, happened within just 24 hours of initial infection. A single day to go from alrighty to nighty-nighty. Le Forestier himself had documented even more rapid deterioration, with death in as little as 3 hours from initial symptoms. This stuff was nasty and terrifying. Surviving the first 24 hours, if you were even lucky enough to do that, usually meant that you would be in the clear, but historical records estimate a fatality rate of 30 to 50%. This also was not a one-time occurrence. The English sweating sickness made its mark on history a total of 5 different times, first starting in 1485 and making a final appearance in 1551. The worst of it came in 1528, where it spread across most of Europe within months, hilariously skipping over and completely sparing France, whom I mentioned, may have started the whole thing. All in all, tens of thousands of people had died. Here's the kicker though, widespread diseases like this typically target the weak, the destitute, deprived, and downright downtrodden, right? Well, according to Le Forestier and Keys, the largest affected demographic wasn't scrawny peasant kids or dilapidated elders. No. The English sweating sickness instead seemed to target middle-aged, healthy, wealthy men. The theory is that this demographic was more social and confined to smaller communal environments, allowing for easier transmission.
How fares the day, my good man?
Pretty moist, Tom. Pretty moist. Now, while the sweat was certainly one way to get sick and tired back then, there's something I know that I'm sick and tired of at this very moment, and you should be too. I'm of course talking about the sleazy data harvesting companies that spend every waking moment trying to claw at your precious private data. Whether you're dumping a file or filing a dump, there's a bunch of scumbags out there trying to yoink your personal information so that they can sell it to thousands of no-good garbage spammers that just slop up your email and phone. Shut up! That's where Surfshark VPN comes in. They are a virtual private network service that keeps your online identity in a metaphorical bubble of encrypted safety as you peruse the worldwide wilderness. Not only can you surf in complete anonymity, but also change your virtual location. You can try United States, Canada, Japan or Australia, the UK, Malaysia or Spain. They've got India, Latvia, even Slovakia, over 100 countries attained. Just flip on the switch while in your favorite streaming service to unblock geo-restricted content or gain access to exclusive deals on shopping websites. So if that whets your whistle, use my link in the description and pin comment below to sign up today. Be sure to also use code ChatHistory at checkout to get 4 extra months with your purchase. Chat History, 4 extra months. Solid deal. If it doesn't tickle your pickle, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so go on and give it the old college try. Alright, next chapter. Hola, Mexico. Looks like you're up to bat for a weird disease. Right around the time that the English perspiration meant English expiration in the mid-16th century, the Mexica were getting shaken up by the Cocolitzli epidemics. The term Cocolitzli here being the equivalent of pestilence in the Nahuatl language. If you've watched my video about surviving the Aztec Empire, you know that funny little TL pronunciation, the sound, is on purpose. What's slightly less funny though were the estimated 12 to 15 million deaths attributed to these epidemics, the deadliest in Mexican history. Now this all took place across the Mexican plateau, right in this region here, but it is known to have spread as far as modern-day Guatemala. The first signs of the disease began to show up around 1545 in the Valley of Mexico, right in the heart of what used to be the Aztec Empire. As you know, the Spanish came along in 1519 and essentially converted the once thriving empire into a Walmart parking lot in just 2 years flat. In addition to using superior weaponry and strategic alliances with neighboring societies to steamroll the Aztecs, the Spanish also brought with them an unintentional biological advantage: smallpox. This took a healthy chunk out of the Mexica population, killing off roughly 8 million people, or roughly a third of the whole dang thing in 1520. But 25 years later, the Cocolitzli decided it wanted to pump those rookie numbers up. Like the English sweating sickness, the symptoms of Cocolitzli were immediate and severe. You were in the thick of it within just a few hours at most. Initial symptoms included high fever, headaches, and intense vertigo. You know, similar to that spinny feeling you get when them beers start looking a little too friendly.
Drink us, you know you want to.
You got it, mister. Please drink responsibly. Beer cans don't talk. It's just too dang bad that these rather simple symptoms would soon evolve into complete horror. During the ominously named hemorrhagic stage, victims would begin bleeding out of every single orifice they owned. Your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, even your beehole and hoo-ha or dangly bits all the way down south. Coupled with excruciating abdominal and chest pain as well as painful swelling underneath the skin, this was just an actual nightmare. The Mexica and the Spanish tried their best to treat the sick, but nothing was working. The Spanish tried quarantining the ill, bloodletting, and even the most powerful remedy of all, thoughts and prayers. The Mexica tried various herbal medicines and their own spiritual healing practices, but it was all in vain. People were simply dying too quickly. The infected could suffer in utter agony for up to 4 days before finally experiencing some relief, because they died. During its initial release in 1545, Cocolitzli ravaged the Mexica population, culling around 80% of the herd. The sequel hit the shelves in 1576. This version was slightly less deadly, but still terrifying all the same. It cut down the remaining Mexica population by an additional 50% before burning itself out in 1580. Within just 56 years, the entire Mexica population had fallen from about 22 million down to less than 2 million. Now, the Spanish were still affected, but not nearly to the extent of the Mexica. This was mainly due to the fact that the Mexica were more susceptible with their more exhaustive labors and poorer nutrition than that of their Spanish counterparts. Their immune systems were weaker, so the disease pressed the advantage. Modern hypotheses point their fingers to either an alternate form of salmonella, some kind of rodent-borne fever, or a conglomeration of various diseases that just so happen to strike all at once. But to me, that just sounds like a giant, I don't know. What is mostly agreed upon, however, is that it's highly unlikely that Coccolizli was a Spanish-born disease, simply because the pathogenesis was drastically different compared to that of known European diseases, so it was just probably something local. More like home field disadvantage. Let's jump back from a society known for ripping out hearts to one that wants to lick the inside of your skull. These are the Foray. They live in a small province right at the base of the shaft of the country of Papua New Guinea. Being a remote society, they pretty much remained uncontacted by foreigners up until around the early 1940s when the Pacific theater of World War II began to boom. Once they were properly contacted, the foreigners did what foreigners do best. They showed up and started shifting the culture. Australian explorers had introduced the Foray people to the concept of hygiene and the establishment of constructing dedicated roads for quicker and safer travel. Pretty good way to nudge a developing community in the right direction. Another colonial influence was to deviate from rather primitive Foray activities like village warfare. I know, kinda hypocritical, right? Well, there was also a push to abandon many traditional values, one of which being endo-cannibalism. Now, this wasn't a savage beat your buddy over the head then drag your teeth across his face type cannibalism. This was a mourn your buddy because he just died from natural causes, then drag your teeth across his face type cannibalism. Very different. Unfortunately for the Foray, disease does not abide by rules of respect and ritual. Biting a brain is biting a brain, which is exactly where Kuru came from, a fatal and completely incurable neurodegenerative disorder. Stemming from the consumption of infected brain tissue, Kuru is a prion disease. Now this is where biology is just crazy to me. Alright, so here, this is a simple protein. It's multifunctional in nature, repairs cells, builds muscles, whatever you want it to do within reason. But if in the highly unlikely case that it decides to fold in on itself in a weird way, it becomes a prion, completely rewriting its entire biological mechanism. Now, instead of being a universal helper, it just turns everything to shit. For the case of Kuru, these prions mess with the neurological function and make your brain go all stupid, causing unusual, involuntary symptoms. The moment a person is infected, the biological clock starts ticking. Dr. Carlton Gajdusek, who is the first to discover the disease in 1957, and who also has a very disturbing history of convictions that I will not go into here, observed over 200 Kuru cases and recorded the stages of their progression. Because of cultural practices, it was mainly women and children who took the brunt of the illness. That's because Foray women were responsible for preparing the remains for whoever was gonna be on the menu that day. Women and children feasted on the more tender, tasty, and nutritious organs, like the brain. The men pretty much sat on the sideline and watched.
You guys want some?
Nope, nah, we're good. According to Dr. Gajdusek, the earliest telltale sign of an infection was the simple loss of balance or coordination. This was followed up by slight twitches and the occasional headache. These symptoms were minor, with the infected still being able to walk and function independently. For now. After a few months, the neurological deterioration became much more evident. A few stumbles here and there quickly evolved into frequent falls, and villager demeanors were shifting entirely. Victims at the intermediate stage experienced drastic mood swings, from fearful and anxious to aggressive and agitated. There was also the disease's signature, an uncontrollable, unnerving laughter. At this point, the writing was pretty much on the wall. Crawl forward a few more months, and the infected were completely bedridden. They can't think, they can't talk, they have zero control over their own bodies. A side effect of that is the inability to eat or drink anything properly. You know, you need coordinated expansion and contraction of muscles to swallow food or have a little sippy sip. If the Kuru didn't kill you, the malnutrition would. So when you think about it, the very violent but quick deaths earlier in this list were a blessing in disguise. Sure, you were blasting blood out your back door, but at least you was only doing it for an afternoon. With Kuru, you were just wasting away over the course of several months, unable to do anything about it. Death occurred usually within a year of initial symptoms. Even today, there is no known cure for prion disease. So until then, maybe hold off on the cranium crunching. Now, I just know that some of you have been hoping that this was on the list. The Dancing Plague of Strasbourg is one of those events where, as bizarre as it was, countless credible eyewitnesses all completely agree on exactly what happened. They just have zero friggin' explanation of exactly why it happened. So yeah, this all took place in Strasbourg in the Alsace region of what is now modern-day France. I've actually been there. See this? I took this picture. See how beautiful it is there? Back in July of 1518, however, Strasbourg was part of the Holy Roman Clusterfuck. It was actually a very important part, serving as a strategic, wealthy, and politically independent city for over 400 years. That's 1.6 Americas long. Well, with it being such a crucial entity of the empire, it'd be pretty embarrassing if some kind of weird phenomenon swept through and disrupted things. What are you doing? Whatever do you mean? Come on, kids, we're leaving. According to this Wikipedia article I just found laying on the ground, a lovely lady named Tropea decided to start throwing it back right outside her home in the middle of the day. Seems innocent enough at first, but she just didn't stop. Save for a few frantic meal breaks or collapses from exhaustion, Tropea let loose for several days. Instead of scaring them off, all of her dancing actually encouraged many of her fellow Strasburgers to join in. She's good. And thus, the plague had spread. Now, you might assume that these onlookers were just doing a tad bit of toe tapping, but you'd be very wrong. They were really pushing the limits of their tendons' tensile strength as they were whipping their limbs to and fro, basically Beyblading themselves around the street and letting them rip. Now, going alls out balls out dancing can be fun for about 30 seconds, but when it goes on for days, that's when mental and physical health starts to trend downward. From a distant perspective, watching everyone doing their shimmy shams looks like a good time, but once you got closer, you realize that something was horribly wrong. The enthusiastic dancers reportedly held an empty but panicked expression, as if they were being puppeted by some unknown force. The dead stare of unbridled torture, coupled with these medieval peasants quite literally dancing their feet to the bone, warranted intervention, especially when 15 were dancing themselves into a freshly dug grave each and every day. Oh, we need to do something. Everyone was quick to offer their suspicions. The church blamed evil spirits, the doctors blamed hot blood, neither of which offered any proper solution. Very helpful. Taking matters into their own hands, city officials attempted the reverse psychology route, setting up stages and hiring musicians to provide a proper venue for the dancers, encouraging the wacky rascals to keep on dancing. And they did. At the peak of its spread, over 400 people were getting jiggy with it. Some doing it thanks to a crippling psychogenic illness, and others just because it looked like fun. But after a while, the fun was done. After 2 months of the plague, it started to die down, mostly because the actual sick people cha-cha slid into the great beyond, taking it to the top with one hop. Anybody else just in it for the bit kinda went on with their lives. Any remaining dancers were promptly carted off for spiritual cleansing, which reportedly worked thanks to a little thing called the placebo effect. In the end, while this may have been a simple case of mass hysteria brought on by the harsh stresses of just existing in medieval Europe, some historians blame bad bread. Ergotism, a fungal poisoning originating from contaminated grain, does exhibit symptoms ranging from hallucinations to uncontrollable convulsions, so sure, why not? Just remember, if you ever see someone dancing by themselves in public, they're either an insufferable influencer or on drugs. Or both. Probably both. Thanks again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. There's a juicy deal just waiting for you in the link below when you sign up. Want to watch some other crazy stuff that happened in history? Well, take a look at this video. I'll see you over there.